All right, so let's wrap up the show on the Airow gun. So I'll tell you, using this on the field is probably one of the most fun niche devices I've ever used on the paintball field. First of all, walking out there with this thing, it attracts more attention than anything that you could possibly do out there on the field, from funny hats to mankinis to whatever. The Airow gun, I keep wanting to call it an arrow bow, but the Airow gun attracts more attention than anything. The first thing that somebody said when I pulled this out of my trunk to get ready to go play was, "I want Rambo on my team." It just cracked me up. It is definitely really fun. I will tell you that, I mean, you guys always know I try to, test the guns or test equipment out in the raw factory spec performance as it comes out of the box. I know I'm not an archery expert. I'm not even an archery noob. I don't know anything about archery whatsoever. There's not a lot of bow hunting that takes place here in the metropolis, Tampa, Florida. So yeah, I know that I've heard that there's ways that you can adjust this to get a little bit more tension. Probably one of the biggest problems that I had with it was in this configuration, which this is a junior bow. The velocity that I could get it up to was about 220 to 240 feet per second. It kind of stayed in between there. Part of it could be the size of the barrel. I don't know what, I mean, that's probably an 18-inch, maybe 20-inch barrel. It's a really long barrel. I know that some people have recommended to drill these for freak inserts, which I think would be a really good idea. That way you can get a nice compression on the back of the ball, get a nice tight squeeze to get a nice compression on the back of the ball. I didn't do that with this one, but I have heard that that's a really good investment if you plan on keeping an Airow gun for any length of time. I also would recommend, if you're using it, to use, especially in the stock configuration. I don't know about these massive compound bows or anything. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that, these bob long style compound bows that can get up to ridiculous feet per second. I'm sure that you can easily get over 300 feet per second with some of these. I think this is a stock 40-pound draw. This is a diamond junior bow. You can get up to 300 feet per second. Probably in this configuration, probably bringing it into an archery expert and having them tighten it up a little bit, and also getting it bored for freak inserts, you could probably get up to maybe 260, 270, maybe, I'm not sure. Another thing that I found is the type of paint that you want to use with this is definitely a very brittle, ultra evil type ball you want to use with this. Okay, and nice and cold too. So if you're shooting it in default mode, 220 to 240 feet per second, you definitely want to make sure that you're using a very brittle ball. You're not going to break paint with this. Okay, it's a very gradual push of air that gets it out of the barrel. It's not like hitting it with like a spider or anything like that. Okay, it's a very gradual push of air. So using, getting ultra evil and putting it in a cooler and keeping it nice and cool, 55, 60 degrees to where, it's gonna be very brittle. That's gonna be a good investment with this. And also, you don't get a lot of shots with this. So by using a very high quality paint with it, if it does happen to hit somebody, it's going to be a nice bright mark. You don't want, you get your first hit with your Airow gun and, it's a super runny, super thin, and the person doesn't even know he got hit with it. So you definitely want to use a very high quality paint. You're not going to shoot a lot of paint with this. So it's not a bad idea to invest in high quality paint. Something else that I found, besides the feet per second that was a concern, was on both sides of where the piston and the piston rod attached to the drawstring here, I guess that's what you would call it. Another concern that I found was that on both sides of the drawstring, I guess that's what you would call this here, there are two metal grommets that, let me see if I can zoom in here. Let's see, we'll go down a little bit. Let's see, probably right about there. If you look here, you can see there are two, looks like brass grommets on both sides of this. And these, if you are not wearing gloves, will rip your fingers apart. I mean, they're not gonna make it bloody, but you are definitely gonna feel some sensitivity on your fingers the next day or even later on that day. I mean, I think the day that I went out there and used it, I probably shot it maybe 100 times, and my fingers were pretty tender that night and the next day from those aluminum grommets. So I definitely recommend you wear gloves. And I know there's also an archery type glove that attaches to the drawstring that you press it with your thumb and it shoots the arrow. that may be a good investment with this if you plan on keeping these long term. But other than that, is it really fun to use? Yes. Did I find, I actually handed this out to quite a few players, and I found that, you know, even though it's a youth bow, it does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of strength to get it back, even in this stock configuration. So, you know, for especially really young players, that may be a major concern if you plan on using this, is making sure you've got the upper body strength to pull this back. But it's not that bad, but it definitely takes a little bit of upper body strength and probably a little bit of practice to really get into the hang of it. Even the first time I tried it, I was like, wow, that's pretty tough. After about 20 or 30 times of pulling it back, I got the motion down pretty good. But that's about it. In terms of a novelty, it is definitely a novelty. It's really cool. I can definitely see this as something fun in the backyard, you know, shooting at targets and stuff like that. Maybe somebody who's already into archery would like to bring their kids into it, and this could be a very safe way to do it. I could also see this as a possible option for maybe even summer camps. You know, summer camps that may want to do archery but don't want the liability of possibly somebody getting hurt shooting real arrows at people. You can definitely use this. And one of the things that's really cool about this is because whether or not there's a paintball in here or not, you have the piston and the piston rod attached to the bowstring. You don't really have to worry too much about dry fires, which I know is a major problem with compound. You dry fire a compound bow, I guess you got to take it in and get it reserviced. It can be a big deal. Once that, you know, this does that supersonic crack, you can wreck these pieces here at the end. I apologize, I don't know what they're called, but you know, I do know that, you know, this could be a great tool for people that are maybe looking to learn how to do archery in a safe way. You know, it's not going to give you the accuracy of a bow, but at least it'll get you to develop the upper body strength of doing it, holding it, feeling comfortable with it in your hands and stuff like that. And something else to consider too. In paintball, whatever you bring onto the field, with the exception of pods, whatever you bring onto the field, if it gets hit, you're out. So, you know, unless you come up with some sort of special rule, if I point at you with this thing and you clip me here on the end or anything like that, I'm out. So, you know, this is way bigger than a traditional paintball gun. And, you know, when you go and you aim at somebody, I mean, this thing is sticking 2 feet over the top of your head. If they hit any part of this thing, you're out. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind. Unless you come up with some sort of special rule and you get it approved and everybody talks about, oh, if you hit the bow, you're out, you know. But in a traditional paintball game, to the traditional rules, if this thing gets hit anywhere, you're out. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, okay? And it's very hard to get a shot off with this without exposing a huge amount of target area for your opponent to hit you with. Okay, now what I was doing was I was laying it flat, trying to get it basically about where I thought the person would be, and I would try to come up in one motion, and that seemed to work pretty well. But you know, all in all, I think these things are retailing, if you hunt around, anywhere from $350 to $450. It's a great novelty. It's a lot of fun, but it does have the obvious restrictions and hindrances on the paintball field. One, velocity that I found 220 to 240 feet per second. Two, huge in size in terms of if somebody hits it, you're out. Three, obviously these aluminum grommets here, if you're not using gloves, that can be a problem too. But other than that, in terms of its appearance and stuff like that, people look at this thing and their jaw just hits the floor. Even experienced paintball players just look at it like, what is that? So definitely a lot of fun. Fun factor all the way to the ceiling. Performance factor almost to the floor. It works, but yeah, it is definitely what it looks like it is out of the box. Let's put it that way. But it's definitely a lot of fun. I really enjoyed using it. I'm not sure if I'd probably keep one here in the closet, but at least you can buy them. You know, they're readily available. If you go to Google, type in, you know, Airow gun, you'll see them. They're all over the place. You can buy just the kit, which would mount to, I guess, any compound bow, or you can also buy it with the complete setup, which is what I have here. But definitely fun factor through the roof with this. I had an absolute blast using it, even though it is what it is. So it is definitely a lot of fun to use. Thanks for tuning in.